right. Food is not a right. A job is not a right. In America, these are not rights. We'll talk about it when Freedom returns at 5.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So yesterday, before his rally in the Valley in Youngstown, Ohio, Trump, in a presser with the Lebanese president, was asked about Jeff Sessions, since he's been tweeting about him and in a rather disparaging fashion. And here's what President Trump had to say about his attorney general.
But I am disappointed in the attorney general. He should not have recused himself almost immediately after he took office. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me prior to taking office, and I would have quite simply picked somebody else. So I think that's a bad thing, not for the president, but for the presidency. I think it's unfair to the presidency, and that's the way I feel. Thank you.
Said time will tell in terms of Sessions' fate, as time always does. You know my view on this, that Sessions was right to recuse himself, that Sessions couldn't have telegraphed that he would recuse himself because the real issue wasn't raised until his confirmation hearing. So Trump is being either forgetful about the timeline or disingenuous about what Sessions could have done prior to his nomination. And Trump's behavior towards his attorney general is unhelpful, both as it relates to the Russian investigation as well as it relates to his political capital on the Hill for his policy agenda, because Sessions is rightly a well-respected public official in the eyes and minds of conservatives, and frankly, to a large extent, across the aisle.
And according to Jeff Sessions, chief of staff, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to be resigning anytime soon.
That's right. For more on this topic, I'm not a federal prosecutor.
Well, you could be one.
Well, no, I couldn't, because I don't want to be. But Andy McCarthy was in New York, and now he is, of course, the contributing editor at National Review, who writes on these topics, one of the preeminent voices on these topics in terms of people that you must read to understand things like the Russian investigation and other such legal matters. Andy McCarthy joins us again. Andy, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Dan, Amy, thanks so much for having me.
So Trump's disappointment with Jeff Sessions, and two items in particular. One, not aggressive enough pursuing criminal leaks. Two, of course, as you heard, the failure to tell Trump he was going to recuse himself on the Russian matter.
Well, I think Trump is acting abominably, but unfortunately we've come to expect that. He's completely wrong. I don't think Sessions should have recused himself at the time and to the extent that he did either. But that said, first of all, we don't know whether the Justice Department is investigating the leaks and investigating the Clinton Foundation, for example, and other things, because we're not supposed to know that. And if Trump really cared about that, he would keep his big old trap shut, because when a president puts pressure on his subordinates to return charges, what ends up happening is he gives the defendants ammunition to attack the indictment when it comes down, because they can say that they were targeted for prosecution politically rather than because the evidence compelled it. So to the extent there are investigations, which we shouldn't know if there are, because they're not supposed to talk about investigations, Trump is undermining them with his comments. And as far as whether Sessions should have warned him ahead of time, he's the president. He's supposed to be this genius executive. Why didn't he ask? We didn't know everything that Sessions was dealing with at the time that Sessions was brought on and when he was nominated. But we certainly knew about the Russia investigation. Trump was briefed on the Russia investigation in early January, weeks before he took office. Why didn't he ask Sessions if he was concerned about it?
I want to go back to the first part, though, the leaks. One thing we do know, as much as the Democrats want every member of the Trump family in cuffs, the only person in cuffs right now in this whole saga is Debbie Wasserman Schultz's IT guy, that this Imran Awan, and this is after his wife fled the country a couple of months ago, and the FBI seized smashed hard drives from his home prior to his arrest yesterday. Of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the DNC head at the time that this was all occurring, the election meddling and the hacking and all the allegations flying back and forth. So there's some evidence that over at FBI and ostensibly justice, they are pursuing the Russian meddling and not limiting it to just Trump and Trump associates. So I would think that would buoy President Trump's spirits on the topic a bit.
Well, I don't know that one thing has anything to do with the other, but certainly that looks like it's a really bad case, and it looks like, to me, at least from the accounts I've read, that they should be looking at Debbie Wasserman Schultz for obstructing the investigation. I mean, it's early, and we'll see what happened, but the amount of money that was paid to this one group of relatives is just staggering compared to other people in Washington.
I know. What did they do with $4 million? I mean, what did they get for $4 million? It seems crazy.
Well, they can get a lot more in Pakistan, can't they? I mean,
yes.
As I understand it, he was allowed to wire close to $300,000 before they popped him. So
that's right.
You know, he goes to the credit union, or I guess wherever they do the wire transfers in Congress, and he tells them he wants to wire $300,000, and they ask him why, and he says, funeral expenses.
Really?
Well, that's not a reason that you're allowed. That's not a reason for that. We don't allow $300,000 to get wired for that. So they look at the website while the phone call is going on, and he says, "Hold on for a second." And then there's a little pause, and he comes back and he says, "Oh yeah, purchase of property." And of course, the guy in Washington says, "Oh, okay, purchase of property, that's fine."
Oh my, and then customs agents lets his wife get on the plane with $12,000 in cash.
Well, for the funeral.
Oh yeah, they had alleged funeral, or maybe it's for a land purchase.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. Now I have to check the statute. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I thought that $10,000, and it might be $5,000 in cash, was the most that you were allowed to bring back and forth over the border without filing a required
disclosure. Yeah.
So if they let her take $12,000, and that's higher than the statutory amount, they should have stopped her. I don't know why they didn't, but I don't want to accuse anyone of doing anything wrong because I haven't looked at the statute.
Hey, I want to skip back to a subject about President Trump. I just wanted to ask you real quick what you think his end game is. I mean, does he want to replace Sessions with an AG who will end the Russian investigation?
Well, I think he wants the Russian investigation to be over, and he clearly wants Sessions out. And I think that he's not he doesn't have the courage to do it himself. In part because he doesn't like to fire people in general. Everybody who's been fired has been fired by somebody else. He only does firing on television and, situation comedy or whatever it was that he was an actor in. But I think he realizes that unlike some of the people who've been let go, Sessions is critically important to the conservative aspect of his base. And there are a lot of conservative Republicans who are very reluctant and remain very reluctant about Trump, who swallowed hard and supported him, or at least got behind him for the election, in part precisely because Jeff Sessions was there. He gave them great credibility with that segment of his base. So I don't think he wants to fire Sessions, even though he wants Sessions gone. So what he's trying to do is bruise him up a little bit so that he's taken down a notch or two with that part of the base, and then make it so unpleasant that Sessions on his own decides he doesn't need this in his life anymore and leaves. But as you said before, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen.
Well, it's bizarre, though, because, number one, there's a bit of a delayed reaction, so this has been a slow burn, which is sort of unusual for Trump. Number two, what's he going to do? He's going to go get some other attorney general who then is going to do his bidding. Nobody's going to take that job and do that. Go fire Mueller as your first order of business. Nobody would do that. They destroy themselves and their credibility. and it would just create
Yeah,
more of a firestorm.
Yeah, how would they get him confirmed?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got 48 votes in lockstep against him on this, and if he burns Sessions, that's going to anger
Yeah,
at
that's a
least
good point.
half of the Republicans. I don't see how. And if the whole point is to now, I should be clear about this. He wants the special counsel investigation over. I think the intermediate step here, and one that he should be pushing for, is it should be narrowed, because the way that Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, assigned Mueller was in violation of the regulations, which call for the Justice Department to specify what crimes the special counsel is permitted to investigate. He didn't do that, so Mueller's on this boundless fishing expedition, and if Trump is angry about that, he's got a reason to be. But the way you deal with that is not to get rid of the investigation, which he can't do anyway. Whatever Mueller has done will be given to the congressional committees.
Right.
So, I think what you have here is a situation where he's not going to be able to confirm somebody to replace Sessions if the point is to get rid of the special counsel, but he should work on trying to get the investigation narrowed.
Yeah, that's good, excellent points, which is why we have Andy McCarthy
Yes,
on the
we
show.
do.
Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, chief assistant U.S. attorney in Manhattan, now a contributing editor at National Review. Andy, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's